we had developed Sparkle
Yeah.
at Brown House for Aaliyah. And when Aaliyah died, the project went on hold, and so I kept trying to do it, but so I finally was able to get some traction with Michael Linton, who was the chairman of Sony at the time, and was able to bring Whitney in now as the mom. And it was a renaissance for her. And that was the last thing she did. I mean, literally, and we had such a good experience. She was so good in the movie. The cast was so lovely, Jordan and Omari and Tika, and we all bonded, and we just had this really wonderful creative and personal experience.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Dream Leapers. I'm your host, Harriette Cole, and boy, do I have a great guest for you today. I am sure that some of you are familiar with iconic movies such as The Cheetah Girls, The Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, Harriette, and Just Right. Well, today we are speaking with the dynamic producer behind all of those and so many other groundbreaking projects. Debra Martin Chase is a 3-time Tony Award winning and 3-time Emmy Award nominated television, film, and theater producer. After graduating from Harvard Law School and starting a legal career, Debra realized that she wanted to shift into entertainment and have a hand in creating and diversifying the stories told across all media. With that goal in mind, she actually became the first Black woman to earn a producing deal at a major studio. Yeah, she's that girl. Over time, she had the opportunity to work as the lead executive of Denzel Washington's film and television company, as well as Whitney Houston's company. Debra helped open doors for many other talented women, such as actress Blake Lively, who was in Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, producer and screenwriter Shonda Rhimes, and Anne Hathaway, whose big break came when she starred as Mia Thermopolis in the Disney classic, The Princess Diaries. More recently, Debra is serving, as the executive producer for all 5 seasons of the CBS hit series, The Equalizer, starring Queen Latifah, whose season finale is tomorrow. Yep, you got to tune in. She is currently the co-producer of the play Purpose, of Death Becomes Her, and The Outsiders, all of which are on Broadway right now. And The Outsiders won the Tony Award last year for Best Musical. Debra Martin Chase has left an indelible mark on Hollywood and Broadway, and she continues to impact the future of storytelling. It is an absolute honor to have her here with us today. Please join me in welcoming Debra Martin Chase. Debra, yay!
How are you?
So well. And we have known each other for a long time.
Oh,
but when you look at somebody's bio, it's like, girl, you have been busy. Wow.
It's been a long journey. It's been a long
Wonderful. So what I love to talk to people about on Dream Leapers is how you got started. What was the vision that you had, and at what point in your life to set you on this trajectory?
So goes back to my dad. My dad was the biggest film and television buff that I knew. And a little bit of a gypsy, but I grew up 6 through 15, actually in Altadena, which has now become famous for the wrong reasons because of the fires there,
Yes.
But and I was that kid that was in the movie theater every Saturday. My mom would have to come find me, and I used to walk around. There were only 4, really, I guess 3 television networks. I knew the schedule in my head. I was that kid.
Right.
But I didn't know anybody in the business. I never saw anybody who looked like us in the business, behind the scenes. It was hard for actors, much less, somebody else. And so when it came time to make choices, I remember I literally had the Harvard Law School application in one hand and the master's in fine arts at USC.
Wow.
Application.
So
And
you knew.
This was my dream. This was the big dream, was to, make movies. But I, also needed to take care of myself, or know that I could take care of myself, because, that's how we're raised.
You need to get you a good job, girl.
All right,
good safe job.
Right, make sure you can be independent. So I went to law school. And then I practiced. I practiced big firms, big corporations. I was a very good lawyer, and I was very unhappy. I just didn't, it wasn't what I wanted to do. And I got married right out of law school, and moved to Houston. And all of a sudden I was working at this big law firm. I'm married. I'm living in a big house. I'm in Houston, Texas. I'm like, this really wasn't the dream here. And so, after a few years, I realized I felt that I had a contribution to make in the world, and this wasn't the route. And so we moved to New York. I stayed. And after a couple of years, and then I got involved in the Michael Dukakis presidential campaign. And I was and I was on the New York State and National Finance Committees. And after that, I got offered a job in the Dinkins administration. And I, thought about it, but I was like, you know what, if I'm going to go for it, this is my shot to go for the dream. Like, I'm still young enough. I can still, and so that was it. For 2 years, Columbia Pictures had an executive development program that was designed to bring people in from different disciplines into the business. I made no money. That effectively became my grad school, but that launched my career.
I'm so glad to hear this, because I didn't know the story. I knew you were a lawyer, but I didn't know the machinations, because a lot of people who tune into this show, Debra, are in transition and are wondering, I don't really want to do what I'm doing, or what I was doing doesn't exist anymore. Because, a lot of people are out of work and sometimes not of their own choice. And being able to tap into what you really want and have the courage to do it is huge. A lot of people don't have the courage to do it. And so you did have the courage to do it. And what was the first project that you worked on that made you know, okay, I think this could work?
Not so much that. Let me take one step back.
Sure.
So, my parents divorced when I was 12. And they, like I said, my father was lovely, and they stayed, very much in our lives and all that. But my mother went back to graduate school when she was in her 30s with 3 kids. And so because she wanted to be a professor. And so that's an example that you are in control of your life. You can make changes, you can pivot, and that was really important. It wasn't, so just kind of picking up, I go into this program, and you're supposed to spend 6 months in 4 different areas of the company over the 2 years. Well, I spent the first year. They got an experienced lawyer who was willing to work her butt off. I stayed in the legal department for a year, and I learned how deals were made and kind of the underpinnings of the business. Then I just happened to sit next to the incoming chairman of Columbia at a luncheon for the program. We hit it off, and a couple of months later, he brought me on as his executive assistant. And that was my big break. That was I went with him to all of his meetings. I read scripts for him. I did special projects. I got the overview. I got the underview with the law and the overview with him. And and I got to sit in the evenings. I could ask any question that I wanted to. He wanted me to learn. Basically, it was like, the fair-haired white dude job I got, and he wanted me to learn. And that really was the thing that's like, okay, I think this is going to work. Like, I've sat in all the meetings and I'm watching these people and I'm like, well, I certainly could do this. And also by this time I was an experienced lawyer. So I had, I knew I had confidence in my abilities, but it was like, but the big shock was, I always believe if you see it, you can be it, right? And that's why it's important for me. I speak a lot at schools and colleges and stuff, because I think that's important. And I had no idea. When I got there was like nobody who looked like us that was doing what I wanted to do. I just assumed, So really, Hollywood was very much behind the rest of the country because it's an insulated business. So I didn't intend to be a lot of firsts. It's not like I went out saying, oh, it was just like I got there and I'm like, well, okay, I'm here and this is what I want to do. And I've got to, break down some doors to get there.
I'm glad to hear you say that, especially, in this moment when DEI is under attack.
Right.
Which is really just trying to make a level playing field for everyone. Even the program you were in, well, like that may have, under today's lens, may have been DEI from the sense
DEI.
But what I mean by this is different industries. Like now DEI is like a scarlet letter, but this diversity idea of everybody coming together to make something great is a great thing. But please define it, because I didn't want to call it something that it's not.
No. The program was it was for people in different disciplines,
right,
to come in. So it was not a DEI program. Not that it matters, because you need, the diverse writers programs and director programs in Hollywood have helped to create a pipeline, because for years, we were excluded. For years, there were no Black writers on, network hour-long dramas. There were very few women. And so people don't get opportunities and experience, how can they grow?
Yeah. Which is obvious to some, and
threatening to others, because I think at the end of the day, it's like you said, these are insecure times for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And what happens is people start to try and find scapegoats to people, to step on, to elevate themselves. And, it's interesting. I have started diversity committees at a couple places. One at the New York City Ballet, where I was on the board for a decade, and one of my corporate boards. And what you quickly realize, or what I quickly realized, particularly with the ballet, is that at the end of the day, what you're talking about is the culture of an organization, one in which everybody is respected for who they are, for their differences, for their similarities, and everybody has an equal shot at succeeding. That's really what you're talking about.
Yes.
So it's a shame that, like you said, it's become like a scarlet letter. You're like, but really what we're talking about is like treat everybody equally, and give everybody an equal opportunity to succeed. Not everybody's going to be able to take advantage of that. Not everybody's going to be able to take advantage of that to the same extent, but at least let's have the opportunity.
And I think, fear drives a lot of that feeling of being threatened, the fear of, that there isn't enough. Looking at the world as the glass half empty, look, spiritually, we learn that there's enough for everybody in the world. And if you really can look at the world in that way, then you welcome others. You don't have to feel like I got to get mine, even if I have to knock you down in the process. But that war has been going on for a long time.
Yes.
And, it'll be interesting to see how things play out overtime, these days, because there is a big change underfoot, and we don't know how influential it will be. So it's good that folks are standing up whenever they can to just point out the world is a better place when we're all in it together.
Well, yeah, without question. And I think one of the things people ask me a lot is, well, do you think, things are going to go backwards in Hollywood? Because you're right. All the DEI of executives have been let go. Programs have been, cut back or scrapped altogether. But here's the thing. I think Hollywood finally realized that diversity was good business.
Right.
And so that's not going away. Before that, it was like you could talk to your blue in the face. Oh, it's the right thing to do. Oh, it's the fair thing to do. Oh, it's the just thing to do. And people are like, yeah. Despite, the image of Hollywood being so liberal and blah, blah, But once Hollywood realized that they had been leaving money on the table, once they realized that a Black Panther could do $1 billion worldwide, right? That, Grey's Anatomy and Scandal and Empire were huge TV shows. Sinners, in an environment where theatrical motion pictures are struggling, anything that's not, established IP or a sequel or something is struggling. Here's an original movie that has, for the second weekend in a row, did big box office. So that
money talks.
Money talks. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, it's a business. Mm-hmm. So these are interesting times everywhere you look.
They are. Hey, everybody, this is Dream Leapers with Harriette Cole. We are talking to producer extraordinaire, Debra Martin Chase. So excited to have her with us today. So, Debra, you have worked with some of the giants in the industry, and I'm going to ask you about a few of them because I know people want to hear. So, Denzel Washington, you ran his company for a while, right?
For 4 years, yeah.
For 4 years. And, Denzel has what a legacy. And now he's on Broadway in this blockbuster Othello. What did you learn from him? And what people want to know, what is Denzel like? What did you learn? He's been a very smart actor and businessman, but people don't really know about him. He doesn't talk that much about himself. What would you like to share with us that you learned from him and about him?
Well, he's just a very smart person. He's a very spiritual person, and there's no accident that he has become the big star, that he is today. I entered his life at a very interesting time. Malcolm was in the can, and when I joined him, so like the first time I ever went to the Oscars was when he was nominated for Best Actor for Malcolm. And at that point, he was a well-established actor, but not the big movie star yet. And so I kind of took that journey with him with Pelican Brief and Crimson Tide and Courage Under Fire, which we produced, and Devil in a Blue Dress. And so to the point where he, had become, a big movie star. So it was interesting to take that ride, to watch how things evolved. What I learned from him as an artist, as a filmmaker, was to understand character, because obviously as one of the greatest actors of our time, he's very oriented to character. And so it just helped me to learn how to approach storytelling from that perspective. Mm-hmm. He's a great Pauletta is fantastic. They're very much a couple, a partnership, life partners. And I think, at this age, when we look back, I take my hat off to them for what great parents they have been.
That's what I was thinking, because look at these wonderful.
Amazing. Right? I just saw Olivia was just in Wine in the Wilderness, which my friend LaShawn's directed.
Right.
was incredible. She did just an incredible job. Malcolm, directed piano lesson. Obviously, John David, the oldest daughter, is in film production as well. But they're real. They're not just Hollywood kids dabbling. They're like trained, serious, and good people. So, my hat off to both of them, Pauletta and Denzel.
Yeah. When you see people's children living upstanding lives and fulfilling whatever their purpose is, that's when you know they're good people.
Yes.
The parents.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't always happen either.
No, and listen, obviously it's Hollywood is a difficult environment to raise kids, right? A lot, temptations, pressure, peer pressure, external pressure. It's a lot.
Yeah. All right. Whitney Houston. You worked with Whitney and her company. I remember I met Whitney when I was in college. She came. I went to Howard, but she was performing in New York, and I came to New York. Her cousin took me to her trailer up on Upper West Side. I don't even know if that pier exists anymore. It was way early in the 80s. Yeah. And what a brilliant, bright light she was. Mm-hmm. And obviously a troubled spirit, but brilliant. What was your experience of her?
So we were partners. We started a company at Disney, Brown House Productions. And I love her. Still can't believe, she's gone. What a tragic ending. So we started this company. I had developed The Preacher's Wife when I was working with Denzel, and she came on board fairly early in the development process. So I got to know her and got to know her whole team. And as we were making the movie, I transitioned to start the company with her. Mm-hmm. And so, she was at her peak. I mean, she, The Bodyguard, right. And just after we started our company, Waiting to Exhale came out. I didn't have anything to do with that, but that's kind of where she was in her life. And I think, as I say, she was so extraordinary, the gifts, but the gifts are also a burden. And she, her stardom was isolating. I think, she very much wanted to, lead somewhat of a normal life and couldn't. She had a lot of pressure on her from her, she had a lot of people that she supported. Mm-hmm. She was, these moments, I'll never forget, we were going to dance rehearsals for Cinderella at Debbie Reynolds had a dance studio in the Valley. Wow. And we were in a limo and we were on our way, and she was like, "Oh, let's go get some snacks." So we stopped at the Gelson's in the Valley and walked into the store, and literally we got inside the door and somebody over the loudspeaker said, "Whitney Houston just walked in the supermarket." And we looked at each other, turned around, fled, jumped in the car. And she looked at me with just this sadness. And she said, "Why did I think I could walk in the grocery store?" And so that's tough.
That is
that's a hard way to live your life.
Literally under the microscope all the time.
Literally under the microscope all the time. So I know that a lot of the, honestly, kind of the, some of the addiction, was her way of escaping, of kind of holding the world at bay. And so then, so we had the company for 5 years. And right after the Princess died, right as we were going into production on the Princess Diaries, our deal ended there. And coming out of Princess Diaries, I got my own deal at Disney. So then cut to however many years later, we had developed Sparkle at Brown House for Aaliyah. And when Aaliyah died, the project went on, went on hold, and so I was I kept trying to do it, but so I finally was able to get some traction with Michael Linton, who was the chairman of Sony at the time, and was able to bring Whitney in now as the mom. And it was a renaissance for her. And that was the last thing she did. I mean, literally, and we had such a good experience. She was so good in the movie. The cast was so lovely, Jordan and Omari and Tika, and we all bonded, and we just had this really wonderful creative and personal experience. And then literally I had just seen the movie for the rough cut, and she was had come to LA to record a duet with Jordan and to go to Clive's the Grammy party. And it was just devastating.
Because I started my career at Essence. I knew Whitney even before. I told you I met her when I was still in college, but we tracked her. We did lots of projects with Whitney over the years while I was at Essence. And then, another iteration for me was when I ran Ebony, and we did a big cover story for her there because she had made a comeback. This is not too long before that time you're talking about. It was in 2009 or so.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And then
she had the album. She had the concept album. Were you at the listening party that Clive did at the Mandarin Oriental?
I was at one in New York. That was at
in New York.
Lincoln Center's where yes.
Mandarin Oriental. Right? Yes. I was there. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. And so there was so much promise. There was so much joy. And I remember so many people coming in, the so-called green room. Like I remember Steve Harvey coming over and praying with her. Like it was just a wonderful moment of love for her.
Yeah.
And the last time I saw her, I was working with Prince. When I left Ebony, the last cover story I produced was of Prince. And then I ended up working with him for a year with his Welcome to America tour. So I traveled with him, and Whitney came to a couple of the concerts in LA at the Forum. Remember, he did the Forum.
I was there. I was there. And Vivica and I got up on stage. I took Vivica with me, and he pulled Vivica on stage, and she grabbed me, and we both went on stage. Yes, I remember.
You know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And she was there, and Shaka was opening for him, and she went up on the stage with Shaka and sang, and she couldn't sing. She had lost her voice. And the most gracious thing Prince did was not to bring her back up on stage. Mm-hmm. She was not happy about it, but it was kind because this was a broken moment. And, it was great to see her, great to give her a hug. I'd known her on and off over the years, but just to anyone out there who is battling addiction, who is battling some kind of inner struggle, please get help. Please. Because it doesn't matter who you are. You may not be able to fight it on your own.
And, everybody, life is tough.
Yes, it is.
We all struggle. Nobody's life is perfect. Everybody has difficult times. And so, yes, please get help. If you get professional help, confide in somebody who you trust. I mean, just speak out.
And I really, really hope that everyone who is hearing us takes heed, because this right now, one of the things that Kamala Harris said when she did not win the presidency, during that speech, she said, now's the time to take care of yourself. Mm-hmm. Which, of all the things that she might have said, I didn't expect that to be something that she would say. And a lot of people at the beginning of this year have talked about self-care. Mm-hmm. Really take care of yourself, because in order to fight whatever the fight is that is before you, you have to take care of yourself. And I just want
Absolutely.
everybody.
And particularly, this message goes to women who I know are your core audience.
Yes.
Because we're so used to giving and nurturing
True.
and silently carrying on, but you have to take care of yourself.
You do.
Mentally and physically.
Absolutely. So this is Dream Leapers with Harriette Cole. We are going deep here today with Debra Martin Chase, because why? We need to take care of ourselves. And part of what we do here, I bring people on who are taking care of themselves, who are living their dreams, and share it with us. I don't want you to hear it just so that you can say this person is amazing, but also so you can say, so am I. And I have to live my dream too, right? And I think that that's incredible motivation for folks. Debra, there's so many people, but I'm picking out some more. Cynthia Erivo. Wow. I remember the first time I heard her sing, I'm like, this little bitty human being has the power to fill any space, to fill the globe with that voice. It's just, she's amazing.
She's amazing. So I had been developing Harriette for a few years with my late friend Gregory Allen Howard, who wrote the original screenplay. And actually, Brandy invited me to go see The Color Purple on Broadway. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, okay, that's my Harriette, Cynthia. I didn't know Cynthia before. I'd not, So I reached out to her agents, and a week later we had tea at the Mandarin Oriental. And it was, again, this is people, she was not, in fact, in the beginning, people were like, who? Like,
right.
Catch somebody that nobody has heard of. And
right.
I would just say, she just won the Tony for Best Actress in a Musical, and, so it was that stage. I mean, this was the first movie she'd ever been involved with.
Right.
So I gave her the script, and, but, when she walked in the room, from Celie to this very chic, interesting, cool woman, I'm like, okay, this chick's got real range, right?
She does.
And then, she read the script and she came back and said, I'm interested. So she actually took the journey with us as we continued to develop it, and she hung in there with us. And so we were the first movie she was ever attached to, but it took a few years more. So between that, she did the Steve McQueen movie, and she did that other movie, like Bad Day at Black Rock or something like that. So we weren't the first she was actually in, but we were the first movie she ever became involved. And of course she did. And I remember, she was like, I have to do my own stunts. I'm like, Cynthia, you can't. And she wanted to sing everything live and do all her own stunts. And I'm like, Cynthia, we're going to be, we've shot in Virginia. We were back in the swamp woods. It was rain, the thing. But she did, because it's part of her process. It's part of her owning the character, part of her understanding what Harriette, really went through, running out through the woods at night with no lights. So,
I mean, it's, while I'm not actually named for Harriet Tubman, because we have the same name, differently spelled, I know lots about her. By the way, my great-great-grandmother was Harriet Ann, like my name is spelled, from the same area where Harriet Tubman came to in Maryland. And, hearing the story of, she's such a good example, Harriet Tubman, of the fortitude and power and resilience of Black women.
Yes.
And fearlessness, when you describe, and we see it in the film, her running out into the night, that happened in the swamp, in the woods. Think about it. Think about putting yourself out there in the swamp, in the dark.
Listen, I think, for me, my hope was that the movie would be an inspiration for people to remember that we can all make a difference in the world, in our community, in our family. I mean, here's this woman, she born a slave, expected by all accounts to be a slave her entire life.
Yep.
And she just decided, no, like this is not how I want to live. And
Right.
and then not only to get her freedom against all odds, but then to free her family, to free, many other people. And then had a whole other career as fighting for women's rights,
Right.
later on. The second husband was, I don't know, was he 20 years younger than she was? She was a cougar. It's like, and that was one of the other things. It's like, historically, Harriet Tubman was presented in this asexual, very masculine way.
Very.
She was a woman. It was funny. I never forget. I took my mother. We were at the Black Smithsonian, and there's this beautiful picture of her. My mother was like, she had a shape. She had a waist. I mean, she
Right.
and like I said, had this young, husband. So one of our goals was just to make her a woman, a multi-dimensional, a woman who's strong, not just like I'm a dude, like I'm a woman who is strong and resourceful.
And you did a good job of that. You mentioned that it takes time. Just going behind the scenes of what occurs in making a film. You mentioned Cynthia was with you from the beginning, but it took a while. What does it take? How do you build the project so that you can get the financing and the team together and get it greenlit?
Well, I mean, every project is different, and it just usually it takes time. I mean, it takes time to close deals, find writers. Like in the Harriette process, we had another filmmaker on before Casey, and ultimately we ended up, just kind of seeing the movie differently. Have great respect for him, but in the middle of the process with him, he got a television show greenlit. And so that he was writing as well as directing. So we lost 9-10 months.
Wow.
Waiting because he had to do this other thing and we didn't want to leave, so it just things like that happen, or it takes time to get the script right in many cases. And in many cases, there's more than one writer that is ultimately needed. And it takes time to close deals. And then, once you start, it's, schedules and, this one's available and weather. And I mean, so my job as a producer, and I'm a creative producer. So I start at the beginning with the material, with the vision, with the book, with the script, whatever. And then I build it from there. I find the writer, I find financing, I work with the writer, I hire the director, I work with the director with cast and all the key crew and location. I mean, and it just, it just takes time.
And for people who don't know, they go to the movies, or in these days, they're turning on some streaming service and binge watching to their heart's delight, not even necessarily understanding how much it takes to make just one of those shows, let alone, the volume is incredible. Let's talk about Disney, because then when you then are working with this huge company.
For 20 years. I was at Disney for 20 years.
20 years. What was the experience like? What did you learn working with a company that had so many resources? And I mean, you worked on some incredible projects.
Listen, I mean, we had a good run, Disney and I. I think, early on, I understood the brand And so I was able to, from Princess Diaries to Rodgers Hammerstein's Cinderella, which was obviously a big deal for Disney and ABC. And the Cheetah Girls, was the first musical that the Disney Channel ever did. And so we created the platform by, bringing the pieces together with Walt Disney Music and Radio Disney. That was the foundation for High School Musical and Camp Rock and modern day The Descendants. So it was a very, it was a very good partnership. Nina Jacobson, who was running the studio for a lot of my time there, was an incredible mentor and supporter and friend. And, we had a good run.
So recently I saw Oz Scott. He says to tell you hello. Oz was the director on the Cheetah Girls.
First Cheetah Girls movie. I met Oz when I was in college, and he was directing for Colored Girls at the Public and then on Broadway.
Which, by the way, so this is just a moment in time. I've been doing this show, Debra, I don't know, 6, 7 years. I don't remember. But my very first guest was Oz Scott.
Oh.
I've known him forever. And,
he's
and for those who don't know, he is a director, as you said. I mean, he actually put Ntozake Shange's For Colored Girls into the production. Yeah. He was the first director to take her.
Yeah, no, he was the one, I said, at the Public Theater, and then took it to Broadway. And, in terms of television, he was an early big TV director, and, and thankfully he's still going strong.
Yeah. It's really great. I want to talk about Broadway.
I want to add a little bit, because we talked about Disney. I'm now at Universal Television.
Yes.
I've had a deal there for, 6, 7 years. And the Equalizer is a co-production between Universal and CBS Productions. So there is an absolutely incredible Black woman that everybody needs to know, Perlina Ibokwe, who is now the chairman of the Universal Studio Group, which oversees all TV production for NBC and Universal. She's amazing. She's a good friend, but also just, like a real supporter.
Which is so important. I mean, you have to have somebody in your corner, right?
Yes.
In order to make it happen. So you've been with them for this time. Well, obviously The Equalizer is a huge hit. What other projects have you worked on with them?
Well, actually, Harriette was Focus Features, which is part of the Universal family.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, and I've got, I've got, a whole slate of television projects in various stages and film projects in various stages of development. So there will be more to come, but it's been a very satisfying partnership. And, The Equalizer has been, we started shooting November 2020, pre-vaccine COVID.
Wow.
And and we were supposed to shoot the pilot. So the world shut down for COVID Thursday, March 12th. We were supposed to start shooting the pilot that Sunday. And then they picked us up straight to series. So it was a lot. I mean, it was not the norm. It was, we had a full COVID squad and testing every day, and we're all wearing masks and shields and stuff like that. So anyhow, we've been through a lot together, but I'm very happy with my home.
Wonderful. And very successful. So it's great. I worked with Queen Latifah over the years, many different projects, including with her first Queen Latifah show in the 90s. I was costume designer.
Single?
Huh?
With Living Single?
No, the Queen Latifah show, her talk show. She had it twice. The first one was in the mid 90s. And she hired me to be her costume designer because I've been the fashion editor of Essence.
Right. I don't even remember that one. Obviously, I remember the second one.
Right. It was in the mid 90s. She's been at this game forever.
And she is the best. I mean, I've known her for 25 years. Obviously, we met, we were both at William Morris, and they put us together to have dinner. And it was like the week before Set It Off opened.
Wow.
Okay. And then obviously in 2010 or 2009, actually, we did Just Right together.
Mm-hmm.
And then this has just been a great, but it's been lovely, great reconnection. We developed, she and I and Shakim, her partner,
right.
We developed the equalizer from scratch for her. So that's one of the that's one of the reasons why it's very much, it's her character with the motorcycles and just it's been good. It's been a good journey.
Excellent. Hey guys, this is Dream Leapers with Harriette Cole. We are talking with Debra Martin Chase. We only have a few minutes left, so let's make these minutes count. So Debra, Broadway. So you have 3 productions on Broadway now. Tell us a little bit about each one.
Okay. I'm going to start with Purpose, which opened in March. It is by Brendan Jacob Jenkins, who won the Tony last year for Appropriate. Felicia Rashad, fabulous Felicia Rashad, is directing. It's a Steppenwolf production that we have, enhanced and made some changes and brought to Broadway. So the core cast is part of the Steppenwolf company: Glenn Davis, Alana Arenas, and then the great Harry Lennox is in it. We brought LaTanya Richardson Jackson and Kara Young. We brought on for this production. Powerhouse. And we've gotten great reviews. It's been very well received. We just got 5 Outer Critics Circle Award nominations and 3 Drama League nominations. And so, we've got fingers crossed for the rest of the journey. Death Becomes Her, which is a big musical based on the movie of the same name. Again, I feel blessed. It's been doing great. Great reviews. It's Megan Hilty and Jennifer Simard, who are incredible. And it's funny. And Michelle Williams from Destiny's Child is in it. And it's funny and bawdy and great music. It's just a great, fun evening of theater. Paul Tazwell, who just won the Oscar for costumes for Wicked, who did my costumes for Harriet. These are the most amazing costumes ever. He's a genius, and humble.
He's just doing his job, man.
Right, that's right. So just the whole show, very excited. And then I have The Outsiders, which won the Tony last season for Best Musical. We won 4 Tonys, including Best Musical.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And we're starting our national tour this fall in Tulsa, which is where it's set. And this will be my first national tour. So it's all very exciting.
So this is really interesting. So Broadway, some liken Broadway to, buying fine art. It's an investment because you love it, but often it doesn't pay off. You've got 3 hit shows on Broadway right now. This sounds like paying off. How do you pick shows to know that it will be a good return on investment, or what makes you make this choice for something that is considered risky?
Well, this whole business is risky, right? So first of all, I have great mentors. Mark Platt and David Stone have been unbelievably gracious and supportive of me, going into Broadway. I've known Mark in the 90s when I ran Denzel's company at TriStar. Mark was the president of the studio. So we've been friends since then. So they've been helpful and very helpful. And, this is the right time in my career to be doing Broadway, because I'm able to bring, a lot of my storytelling skills and just my basic knowledge and gut, and nothing's ever set in stone. plus relationships to this arena, and I'm learning a new business at the same time. So yes, you never know for sure. But for instance, in the case of The Outsiders, it's great IP. The book is still being taught in schools. People love it. There's a reason why it's still relevant and around all these many years later. It was an incredible creative team, and it felt it worked. I didn't know it was going to win Best Musical, but you just kind of, you just weigh different things. In the case of Purpose, again, I saw it in Chicago at Steppenwolf, so I was able to get, and it's just great. It was a big hit in Chicago. It's really well done. And you just hope, again, if you can, and try and do it for a price, which is something, I'm learned from my movies in particular, that people would respond, and hopefully, it would be ultimately, hopefully it'll be profitable. We'll see.
Well, congratulations on all. We can't wait to see what's next. All those things that are percolating in the background, we can't wait to see what they are. Thank you for spending this time with us. Debra Martin Chase, thank you. And thank all of you for tuning in. I hope that you have had as much fun as I have. Now we've got lots to see, so go see it. All right, everybody. Until next time, have a great day and make it count.